Hello, everybody. This is the AWS Provider bi-weekly meeting. I am your moderator, facilitator, Justin Sanababra. I work at Google. A reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be put on the internet and YouTube. And please be mindful of our code of conduct, which essentially is to be a good person. We don't have too much on our agenda. We only have a couple of people here today, so this probably won't take the full hour, but why don't we kick it off with, well, Andrew sends his apologies, but Nick, you were going to talk through his topics. So Nick, over to you.
Yeah, so he couldn't make it. He asked me to just quickly run through his topics, though. The first one is removing inactive users from the owner's file. So last week we talked about this one, and we wanted to have at least a 2-week period between meetings for people to respond to the PR. I haven't looked at it in a couple of days. I know there was some responses, and some people didn't respond. So I think at this point we can assume that it has had enough time for feedback, and those who are active and want to object have. So I think we can expect, I don't know that we'll merge it today, but I think maybe next week we'll probably merge that and remove the inactive members. Any comments from those on the call?
And so just to confirm, basically the people that said that they're still here, we're gonna keep in, but the people that basically have not responded, we will. Yeah, and looking at the list, that looks fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so that's it for that item. Next one is the doc site is up. Andrew had a PR for the doc site. I'm going to click on that because I haven't actually looked at it yet. Cool. Yeah. So we have no content yet. We need people to start contributing docs. I'm going to try to start working on that next week. But the more people we have contributing, the better the docs will be. So.
Yeah, I expect there was a question in the agenda around how to ask for help, how to divvy up the work. I suggest that the strategy of pointing people, getting up some things, copying content where we can, and pointing people to it, and explaining how they can contribute is probably the best strategy. So it's like the old adage about like the best way to get an answer is to give the wrong answer. So we will put up some docs that are not necessarily entirely correct, but like as long as we start pointing people to it and explaining to them how they can correct it, that I think is probably good.
Subtle intentional docs bugs to get people to contribute.
Yes. I mean, I just don't think we have to make sure that we shouldn't aim for perfection in the docs before we promote them, as it were.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, no, we'll just get some quick stuff up next week and then go from there. And then in terms of divvying up the work, I think maybe we should create a few issues on just different, like what sections we definitely want to cover. Like one for me that is like a huge pain every time I have to look at code for example, load balancer annotations, right? Like I think we should definitely try to cover that well in our docs. So just
that's a great.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, that's a great goal. Something that occurred to me: storage provider, like EBS drivers with a new CSI EBS drivers. Do they go here or do they go elsewhere?
In terms of docs or code?
Sure. I was thinking about docs, but yes, docs is one I'm more thinking about.
I mean, if I guess we could probably take a closer look at what exists already, and if there's something that they already have that is good, then we maybe don't need to touch it. But if there's a lack of docs in that area, then we could suggest having a section on storage. Yeah. It makes sense, right? It's like, it's a very similar, I don't know if we technically call it part of the cloud provider or not, but it's definitely, it is a cloud provider interface, and it would make sense to have all the docs in one place.
From a user perspective, I agree with that, yes. And there's another, the next, if no one else has anything on that, the next one is around GCR staging image setup pending. Do you can speak to that one?
So this one actually, I'm not, let's open up this PR here. I'm not 100% sure. I'm guessing it's an image for cloud provider AWS. Yes, it is. Awesome. I also created a image for, we have some internal accounts. I created an ECR repo for cloud provider AWS and built the existing 117 image for that. So it looks like we'll have a GCR image and a ECR image. So that's good.
It's really good. Yeah, I just poked around that PR. It looks like it's blocked on a quota limit on the CNCF Google account. So they're just getting that limit bumped up. It looks like it doesn't look like there's any objection to the PR per se.
Okay, cool.
All right. Actually, should we go out of order a little bit? There's this cloud provider topic you added. Was that you that added at the end? Is that what you just covered?
Yeah. We can just to reiterate, we have now a GCR image and an ECR image, and so we can skip that item. I think I have a PR open just to merge Andrew had added the manifests for kind of an example external provider deployment in a cluster, and he had a placeholder, so I just replaced it with the ECR image. We can debate later whether it's the ECR or GCR image that goes there, but yeah, that's it. Sorry, are you muted or?
I am muted. Thank you. Along those lines, is that the authenticator release? Is that similar? Like that's an announcement about that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have time to do like super good testing or really much testing, so I decided to just make an alpha release, let people play around with it, just get it out there rather than waiting around for it, and then I'll probably try to do a real release, next week if I have time to test it or soon.
Sounds great. We just lost Nadir. I don't know whether he's going to come back because he does have a demo. He may have a demo for us, but anyway, the other item is Seth. So you have a good topic, I think, around labels.
Yep. I was just wanted to know if I guess AWS is the right place for this, or is it scheduling? Do we need outside permission to add new labels to AWS instances?
So yeah, the core request I think is good, which is to be able to add additional, more granular or less granular, I guess, labels so that you can target an instance family like we were discussing about before we started the recording. So you could target like C4s or C instances, I guess. We don't have currently have a scheduler, a way to express it in the scheduler, other than to create labels at the different levels of granularity. That's my understanding. We could check with SIG scheduling, that's correct. Presumably you're talking about having the kubelet auto add those labels, is that right?
I think right now it's the cloud provider that adds the instance type label, right? So it's in the legacy cloud providers under AWS. So each cloud provider specifies its own instance type. So I was wondering if we could just add instance generation and instance family there, or does it have to be something that's consistent across all cloud providers? Because there are differences, I guess. I don't know if all other cloud providers have the concept of instance family and instance generation and all that stuff.
I mean, I think, I don't know that they all do. That's a fair point. Now that it's AWS, we could certainly, if it's going to be in the AWS Cloud Controller Manager, that's makes our life a little easier, I guess.
Yeah, I would say maybe we should consider different label names, because you have node.kubernetes.io. If it really is specific to AWS, then we should do something that reflects that it's not a generic Kubernetes label.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. As long as we have a way to add those labels and schedule based on that, so to have more flexibility. Because right now you have to just basically list every instance in that family or generation in order to get that, to schedule like that.
Yeah, I think that it's a good request. I think I think there's, now that we have split out the cloud provider, there's a good chance to get this to happen. I think I don't know if we have a format, I guess, or prefix for AWS specific labels. You could always send the PR with the labels as you have them right now and let us debate it on there, because I imagine the people that have opinions will then come out of the woodwork. And that might end up being a cloud provider concept, like we establish a common prefix pattern for the various cloud providers.
Mm-hmm. But the only other thing this would affect, I guess, is like things like the cluster autoscaler, right? So it would have to understand what those labels mean in order to scale up.
Would it? Oh, because I don't think it actually understands the labels. We'd have to communicate those labels in, like, when we created the auto scaling groups, right? For scale from 0, which I think you added to autoscaler, right, Seth?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that the cluster autoscaler, if it's scaled, yeah, if there's like existing instances, I think it could figure that out. But if it's scaling from 0, I guess it has nothing to reference. So it would have to have like that information and know like what, what's available.
The way you did that in autoscaler today, you labeled the autoscaling group. Was it extensible? Like, do we have to make a change to autoscaler, or can we just like change cops, change EKS or whatever it is? I don't know if it's, I mean, it's the node side, so I don't know, but like to add those labels, or?
It's been a while since I looked at it, so I don't really remember how it worked. I know there's like a map where we look up information to know like how much CPU or memories on a specific instance type, so that we could kind of pre-calculate what the scheduling would look like. But because this is not an instance type, it's instance generation, we'd actually have to like look through all of those, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, to my mind, I think probably the right step is to start the PR and like and then like have a to-do, which is like, let's check what happens with autoscaler. And because it might be that scheduling says, oh, you should do this. And it, yeah, I feel like getting the ball rolling there is a good idea. I feel like it's a good thing that we can now do it at the AWS level, but we should coordinate with the other levels as well, just to make sure they're happy for us to do it at that level.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. I guess the PR still has to be against KK, but we will describe it as against the future AWS Cloud Controller Manager.
So where would that would go in legacy cloud providers?
Yes, Nick is nodding, so. Because we don't have a way, a good thing, we don't have a way to, we haven't split the code, we don't have a way to do it other than in legacy cloud providers. So we are targeting it as a future feature, I guess. And it just happens to be picked up by the legacy code.
It might also be worth just bringing up at like SIG Cloud Provider to see if other cloud providers have similar concepts, or if there's like a generic form that would work for them before we.
I mean, I know GCP has a similar ish concept, like with the different architectural generations, but the names are going to be different. Like, so it's not like you can target a C and always get like a Z on whatever family it is, Ivy, Canyon, or something. Like, you're going to get a different thing based on the different cloud providers. So it wouldn't be that you could target in that way. And I don't know if we want to start like exposing the architecture. Exposing the architecture feels wrong.
Okay. So right now, the way we get the instance type is through the instance metadata, and I don't think it exposes like the generation and family information about that. So I guess it would have to be some sort of logic to parse that from the instance type. Does that have like potential to break things in the future? Like if there's a different naming convention?
Nick might not want to comment. I'm sure it has the potential to break things. It's like, I feel like it's probably a good idea to do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think our generation names are pretty consistent, but
Except the new M6G kind of breaks off of that a little bit, right?
yeah. I mean, taking that into account, like you could have some parsing logic. I don't see too many changes. It's something that's slow to change, at least, so we can react to it. So
okay.
Nadir, okay, well then that sounds great. That'll be an interesting one to follow, and hopefully will be easier than it was a year ago. So thank you, Seth.
Thanks.
The Nadir, I see you have joined. You may or may not have a demo for us. I don't know. We can't hear. We still can't hear you though. We can see you. You could let the code do the talking. Oh,
you hear me now?
yes.
Yeah, so I've got, well, one I've forgotten, two, I've got serious Zoom issues right now after upgrading to version 5 on Linux. It's in a bit of a crash loop.
Yeah, I saw you dropped in and out. So if we need to, we can postpone for 2 weeks. I think
I might need to.
Okay, but yeah, anyway, yes. Thank you for the tip on not necessarily upgrading right away to Zoom 5 on Linux. That will probably save some people some trouble. But yeah, so we'll postpone that till the 29th, which is in 2 weeks.
Sorry about that.
That's right. All right. But yeah, that will be a demo of Cluster API v1 Alpha 3, correct? On AWS. I'm going to take that. Yes. Okay. I'm not going to make you talk too much. It seems like it's all right. I need to do this upgrade and see what happens. This is going to be interesting. But if there's nothing else that anyone wants to talk about, then I guess everyone gets a bunch of time back.
I realized I just have one really quick thing based on for the cloud provider image and doing releases for that. So Andrew has a KEP that is sort of a strong suggestion that cloud providers follow for versioning, which is to basically take the major and minor version of Kubernetes releases that they're sort of matching to and just use the same major and minor version and then kind of independently, like your version is the patch version. So I did that. I just did like the code right now in the external repo is 117. So I just did 117.0 for the first release of that. And then do we want to just follow the same convention of release branches where we have a release branch for each minor version of Kubernetes, and it seems reasonable. I just wanted to kind of throw it out there, and if there's other ideas, we can talk about it. But yeah.
I see a thumbs up from Nadir. Like that is what we've done in COPS for a long time, and it seems to work. The only confusion is like then you're like 117.1 where like Kubernetes is 117.8, but like that seems to pale in comparison with the other options have much worse failure modes.
Like, well, there's like we could make a crazy grid of semantic version, like 1.0. Yeah.
I mean, Client Go has done that, and I would say that is not terribly successful. So I guess keeping the release branches is a really good thing to do as well.
Okay. Cool.
I'd also hope eventually it wouldn't be too closely tied to the actual Kubernetes version.
But
yeah. It's still a nice thing to do from a user sanity point of view.
That was actually when Andrew brought it up in the last cloud provider meeting. That was my concern, is that, you know, if we want to release a feature, are we allowed to sort of break our own semantic versioning model to release a feature in the middle of a Kubernetes minor version?
Yeah, I mean, it's Kubernetes Semver anyway, so it's less Semver, less strict. And it may we probably want to make our own decisions about when to release features. Like COPS tries to release features only on the miners, even though but the miners are delayed compared to Kubernetes. So it's skewed, but like still the same basic approach. But each one can each project can come up with its own rules in that regard.
Yeah.
Basic risk management.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to follow a similar cadence that Kubernetes does. And we can take it on a case-by-case basis, I guess, with as features come out. Do we want to hold this for the next version of Kubernetes or not? I think probably a lot of the time we will.
Awesome. But yeah, it makes some sense to me to start there, and it will certainly, I know that other projects have had a lot of using your own numbering system just leads to user confusion. I don't know if there's any other topics. Going once, going twice. All right, well, I will see everyone in 2 weeks when we will have upgraded to Zoom 6 and enjoy a wonderful Cluster API v1 Alpha 3 demo. See you all in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.